This is a horror game podcast. It is meant for mature audiences. It may contain shocking revelations, violence, and sexual themes. Viewer discretion is advised. Greetings, fellow investigators, and welcome to our video podcast, Into the Darkness, where my friends and I are playing the Vaesen role-playing game. I'm your host, Thom Raley. The scenario is Storsvagåret, the Year of Great Weakness. It was written by Matthew Sanderson, who is also our game master, and this is episode 1. For those who are listening for the first time, we at Into the Darkness are currently running 4 different scenarios a week. We started in 2015 and we just passed our 300th scenario. That's around 1,400 episodes. Some of them are longer than others. It works out to around 3,000 hours available for you to watch. We don't monetize our videos, but we rely on your support to keep us going. Your help is always appreciated and our costs keep going up. If you would like to help, we have a Patreon link here and in the description, or you can show us your appreciation using the Super Thanks button just below the screen. Our deepest gratitude to all your help in keeping us going and helping us improve our show. So without any further delays, let's begin our journey into the darkness. Matt?
Right, thank you very much, Tom. So we'll begin with a little bit of a history lesson. Last year, spring and summer was much colder than usual throughout all of Sweden. A late spring led to snow still being on the ground in June in some areas. Summer in particular was very short, as autumn came early. The result was bad harvests, resulting in that it also became harder to feed cattle. Food prices rose, and famine followed. It's worse in the north, but it's affected all of Sweden. That autumn, the central government granted emergency loans to the northern counties. Appeals for funds to help those in need were published in the press, and county governors were given powers to establish emergency committees to collect funds from volunteers and philanthropists. In total, funds from outside of Sweden were contributed from both Europe and America, with total foreign aid being reported to be as much as that collected from within inside Sweden itself. Local city councils ultimately distributed the relief funds from the emergency committees. In many places, the terms that they set for people to receive aid was not just starvation, though. They had to be willing to work to receive funds to buy food. Exceptions were made for invalids and the elderly, but only 10% of funds could be set aside for this charity, as it was so seen. Projects for the construction of roads, homes, and railroads were organized to give people the opportunity to work for the aid they needed. These projects were meant to be a symbolic demonstration that the government would only help those willing to work and be productive. Some authorities even recommended that the starving populace should eat bark bread, a known famine food made from lichen. Others mixed lichen into the flour they used to bake bread that they then distributed. However, this resulted in chest pains and vomiting, especially for the children that ate this unfortunate food. This led to the last calendar year becoming known as Storsvagåret, the Year of Great Weakness. Swedish immigration to the USA started roughly 30 years ago, but the famine only accelerated movement to the New World. Moving forward to a couple of months into the current year, as summer approached with the promise of a good harvest returning, temperatures soared and brought widespread droughts to much of the country. Crops have died in the dry, scorched fields. The harvest has failed, and animals are starving in farms all across the country. Voices are growing louder, criticizing the government for unfair distribution of aid to those in need. Further fanning the fires of discontent, it has been reported that while animals are dying in farms all across the country, last year was apparently a successful year for Swedish cereal exports, mostly oats to the likes of Great Britain, where it was used to feed horses pulling buses in London. Meanwhile, here in Sweden, the famine continues. And as mentioned, it's a lovely warm time of year. The date is Thursday, the 11th of 11th of June. That's it. In normal Castle Gillenkrutz, the lovely rundown palace that you have in Uppsala, where our group of members of the society currently reside. So let's do a quick round of introductions for folks, for what people would know in the rest of your team about yourself, and any bits of history that you want to share. So we'll start with, first on my screen, Father Victor, and then go around.
Yes, I'm Father Victor Nystrom. As we've all learned in the past, I was once a rather selfish and self-serving man. I was witness to some very, very disturbing events. Some thieves were torn to shreds by a church grim, and it so affected my life that I left my thieving profession and became a priest. Since then, I have encountered a number of Vaesen spirits. I seem to have a natural talent for seeing them, and those that we have thwarted and those that we have struck bargains with have enriched our lives. I should also add that despite the hardships of the last year and a half, we've managed to ourselves stay ahead of things, and at least we have bellies that are full, and for that we should thank God and be grateful to those around us.
Yeah. Next round, new face, Helena.
Yes, I am Helena Johansson. I am a aspiring writer. I've written many books. I've been an editor as well. My interest in Vaesen comes from fairies, actually. I've researched many books and many stories on fairies, and I have had some experiences with them. And so my goal is to learn as much about fairies as I can possibly learn, and weed out the untruths from the truth, and make sure that people really understand what these creatures actually are.
You have an extremely fortunate opportunity, as we have a fairy mound on the property.
Ah, interesting. Excellent. I will certainly take note of that.
Yeah, there's a nice little mound towards the back of the property that Castle Gillenkrutz sits on, where there's a row of 7 very old wooden headstones, or markers that have been put in the ground, one of which is kind of slanted off at one side, maybe as if someone had been digging around there at some point. But yeah, there's occasional offerings which are left by this little hole, almost like a molehill that goes into the side of the hill, where milk, cheese, bread, and other such goods are left there to be friendly to your neighbours. All right, next round, another new face. We've got Valentina.
Hello, I am an occultist. She's seems to have had a good life, a family of a wealthy railway developer. Educated, went to the studied history at the university at Lund University. I found out that I have this, kind of dealt into the forbidden arts and found I had a talent for contacting the dead and learning the future and the secrets that those who taken to their grave. There was an unfortunate incident that with a lindworm, I think I misstepped and was spat upon, and that corrosive acid kind of hit my arm and my shoulder, and it took some time to heal from that.
Indeed, yeah, lindworms are not the most, say, user friendly of all, most accommodating of monsters to run across.
No, they're not.
Yeah. Right. Next round, a returning face. This time, Oscar.
I am Oscar Eriksson. I don't actually talk about my past very much, but I've been around, and I clearly did not come from the sort of family that put me through a advanced education. I have a very faithful dog with me, Hulda, who has protected me in a pinch more than once, and we're quite close. And although I recognize that it is sometimes necessary to make a deal with the Vaesen, I prefer to, when possible, eliminate them.
Although we're not holding it against you and not saying that you're a member of the Rosenbergers, because they're very much the more militant counter group to the society, who very much take a scorched earth policy towards any interaction between Vaesen and humanity.
Yeah, I have seen that we're acting righteously. You just can't necessarily trust them as a kind.
Indeed. And last up, another new face, Franz.
Yes. I'm in a huge military navy coat that is navy blue and goes all the way down to my knees. And I have a giant sucker ring mark around my left eye, which is pale and blue like the ocean, and is completely blind as well, where clearly some horrible sea creature has sucked out all sight from it. And I also have my military attire still on, and a three-cornered hat on, which is kind of old-fashioned, but I just don't give a fuck.
Aye. Oh, well, at least fashion. You don't have to worry about the fashion police coming for you. Don't worry about that. Yeah. Right, so we begin then. As said, it's June the 11th. It is a Thursday, which it's, again, pretty warm. Even though you are a fair way north in Sweden, well, Sweden itself being a fair way north, you're towards the southern end of the country. It's still coming up to the mid-20s in Celsius, so I'm not sure how that equates to in Fahrenheit off the top of my head. Warm. Anyway, we'll put it that way. You have a note of that somewhere.
Quite warm, yes.
Yeah.
It's like 70.
And it drops to about half that at night. It goes down to about the mid-teens. So it's muggy nights, and they're fairly short nights as well. Obviously, the further north you get, then the shorter that window of darkness becomes. But otherwise, nice warm. What would otherwise be a nice beginning of summer day. And early in the morning, about 10 a.m., you can hear, for those of you that are downstairs in the castle, you can hear the telltale signs of footsteps approaching up the gravel drive towards the front door of the castle. And there is a tentative knock, knock, knock at the front door.
I'll go answer it.
I was about to say, because you're fairly sure that Algot, your most unfriendly and unwelcoming butler, probably won't be lifting a finger to help at this point.
No.
He'll probably just be sat in his room with his feet up and reading the local newspaper. So you head to the front door.
It is probably Anders with a message.
There you go. You say you've a friendly face you have met before. Probably doesn't smell so much of the smoke around him that you normally associate with him after you nearly got the guy blown up
last time.
A few adventures ago. Yes.
Anders, good to see you. Come inside.
Oh, thank you, sir. Scampers on in.
Cook will have something for you to eat if you so like. Do you have a message for us?
Oh yes. Well, your food. That's wonderful, wonderful, sir. Thank you. I wish we had more messages for you. If I could get something to eat with them each time. And he tentatively hands up a relatively crumpled letter towards you. And so,
Thank you,
yes, that's
Anders.
for you, sir.
Now go on to the kitchen.
Okay, thank you. Out of the way. And he pretty much speeds off immediately at the prospect of there being something nice and welcoming waiting for him there. Looks like he's being led on by this trail of freshly baked bread in the air.
I have a letter from who's it from?
Well, on the outside it just says for the attention of the society, and then it's actually the
society. We can go over that. Perhaps we should gather here in the great room.
Yeah, either in the main lobby or in the library, whichever's more acceptable.
Whichever is cooler.
Yeah, the lobby's probably the cooler room here, being it's more internal. There's not so many windows. Yeah.
Tuesday, June 9th. To whom it may concern, my name is Katarina Bertson, forewoman for a railroad work crew out of Vännäs in Västerbotten County. We are in the process of clearing woodland and laying new railroad track to connect Vännäs with Vindelen via the names Turland, something like that.
There's no marks here for pronunciation because trust me, I will screw it up as well. So.
I appreciate that. This provides the workforce with access to emergency aid intended to help those in need from the widespread famine. Following word of your recent successful exploits in Charlottenburg, I am hoping the society will be able to help us in our hour of need. Over the last month, the railroad we are building has been sabotaged during the hour of darkness. Additional security guards have been hired to patrol the 15-kilometer length of railroad to Vännäs. We have currently reached as far as a small farming community of Gulbach in an attempt to catch the saboteur in the act. However, sabotage has continued, and more distressingly, 4 of our security team have completely vanished without a trace. It is my fear that our presence and actions in the forest have angered the spirits that reside here. I fear we have either stumbled onto land claimed by the Fae, with our guards taken away to the fairyland, or enraged a nearby woodwife who has had our guards swallowed whole by the very trees themselves. The sabotage and the delays to the work schedule in order to repair the damage, compounded by the disappearances, have forced the mayor of Vännäs and the local regional director from the traffic bureau to conduct a review of the project. If they decide to end it before completion, the workforce face a real threat of starvation without access to the emergency aid as the famine enters its second year. Please help us. Yours, KB.
Unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate. They're in quite a pickle.
So, you and Valentina seem to know the most about the Fae.
Had our encounters.
And we have the queen and her group out in the back lot in the ferry mound. Though we can't exactly spare cakes and high cost gifts at this time of year. What do you think we should do? I mean, we'll have to travel there.
Yes, we'll have to. It's best to be careful with the Fae, not make deals with them if possible.
They do require a great many gifts, and that's something we just might not be able to provide this time around.
Well, one of you literary types should see if there's anything in the library that will suggest something specific to the area. I've been through Vännäs and Vindela, but it's been years. I don't remember any particular lore, but I wasn't active in this sort of business back then.
They're cutting down trees. That's never a good sign.
No, that can have ramifications in and of itself. Do we know any of the names of the presumed missing dead
Not yet.
guards?
There was nothing in the letter itself, but
Right.
you're thinking very much on the right lines there. If you get some names of anyone who's vanished, then you might want to sit down
Right.
with your
Yeah.
crystal ball and have a word with them. But
So
you
there-
do need
Bring-
names.
Bring your
Yes.
equipment with you as we
it
go.
would be so much better to know here. I have such a lovely parlor.
Well, we have no way of contacting them unless we go there. So
Yes, it sounds like the end of the project could happen before a letter could arrive and get back with that information. It took 2 days for this to come down. It'll take us 2 or 3 to get up there?
As you say, you've been through there. You know the rough timeline involved. It's quite a long way up the country to get to that part of Västerbotten County. Umeå is the nearest large town, and then Vännäs is kind of the nearer settlement besides that. But you're looking the best part of an overnight sleeper train you'd need to get from Uppsala and then head up the main line going north. To get to Umeå, that would take roughly 17 hours, which you'd break midway or take the sleeper that would, say, carry you straight on up. From Umeå to Vännäs would be only about an hour. And then from Vännäs up to Gullback along this track of, presumably if you're allowed to use the length of track they've already laid, that would probably be about 40 minutes, probably going up there. But yeah, this will take you will arrive a day after you set off.
I hope we can use one of those hand cars.
So they should have something for us. They're bringing supplies up. So yes, there should be something.
You'd think, especially again, riffling on the fact you've been up there before, you know that Vännäs has a steelworks there. So if they're producing the rails locally that they would then be laying to form part of the tracks, they'd probably have something a bit more substantial than your up-down thing.
Yeah,
like
that would
a lorry.
That would be unseemly.
Yeah. And it would also be a lot of effort to try and push that further along. You probably think they've got a dedicated engine that would be able to take goods as well as people. So it's probably going to have a flatbed and maybe a small carriage to carry
Right.
folks and personnel up there.
Won't be very comfortable, but
Yeah, for an hour.
still, Valentina, you could pack your crystal ball. I'm
I
sure
shall.
there's a bit of, I mean, hopefully there's nothing rough. Hopefully you don't drop it and break it. Well, I shall begin packing. We'll see if we can get tickets this afternoon or this evening.
Yeah, this is one of the advantages of being based in Uppsala, that because you are on the main north-south east east coast line that runs directly into Stockholm, trains leave about every half an hour. So you can set off pretty much any time you want to later on today after you've done any preparation that you want to do.
Probably not a great deal of traffic going in that direction since the famine's greater up there.
Indeed.
Well then,
Does anyone want to do any research or anything more investigative based down in this part of the country before heading further north? If so, what do people want to look up?
Is it possible to search the records to see if there are any stories about Vaesen in that particular, related to those particular towns?
Yeah, you can certainly hit the books. Give me a logic and learning roll.
they also mentioned tree wives, which, oof,
You've had
Right.
experiences with them before.
yes.
I have no successes.
Okay. About the only thing that you can find then is when you have a look at a set of books that actually Valentina has mentioned at one point, having had a look in, on which is the upgrade you chose. Sorry. You go to the Annals of the Society that you found in the castle library, and you start having a look through specifically them to find if there's going to be any activity related to Vaesen, it would be listed in here. And you do find a mention, a very brief one, of a manor house, which is not too far from Goldback. It's about 1 kilometer or 2 to the east of Goldback, which was long time the ancestral home of the Pilkvist family. To go back into some historical context here, at the beginning of the 18th century, Sweden was for a large part controlled in a very a very feudal manner. You had local landowners that then had their vast areas of land that they owned rented out to farms or farmland and farmers that would then generate income, which would then go into the family, basically the family estate. Various rules or various legislation was passed over a period of a very few years that essentially destroyed that series of that setup of government, where it became a more centralized government, and that whole system collapsed across the country. And this is one of the things that started the Great Migration over to the US. So these families that had wonderful income coming from all these farmers in the area suddenly go, oh, okay, all these farmers now are suddenly being given this land over to themselves, and we're not getting any income. Right, we're off to the US to go and find our fortune, because ours are rapidly dwindling over here. This was something that was happening with a lot of the Scandinavian countries, not just Sweden. There is, say, the note of the Pilkvist estate, which is in the village, or just outside the village of Starksmark, which at the point when the last investigation by the society, this is going back about 20 odd years or so, though, when they last reported having gone up there, there were reports of there being a haunting. So the area was apparently affected by a ghost. There are notes to say that there were people that were worried it was the ancestors of the Pilkvist family were very much angered by the collapse of what they considered to be their legacy, and that they were taking revenge. But it ultimately turned out to be someone in the area was using that as a good cover story to enact some terror tactics on the locals, that there in fact was actually no Vaesen activity reported in the area. So almost that Scooby-Doo moment of ripping someone's mask off and going, I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you pesky members of the society. But yeah, other than that, there's no reports of any true Vaesen activity in the area. It's essentially just a bunch of isolated small farmland now. Anyone for anything else?
Yes, I wanted to look up the area, particularly focusing on maps of the area to just see what kind of environment it is.
Yep, no problem. Maps are easy enough, and this is again something that you are, say, as a military man, you're well accustomed to maps and being able to navigate. So you're able to find this.
Ah, excellent. So it looks like, yeah, there's the railroad going through there, and half of it is not complete.
That's it. You've got the two railroads which converge in Umeå, and then they head down, see, towards the coast. I mean, Umeå is a fairly important port in this point in time, and particularly the blue train line, as well as the white one to a lesser degree. The blue one is where a lot of goods, raw materials, are being transported from the northwest. So this is up in the area of the likes of Alcavare, which I know some of your group have been up to in previous exploits, where silver, iron ore, and other such raw materials are brought in by train to then head out across the Baltic to wherever their final destination may be. And also raw timber as well, because that's another big export that Sweden has that exploits its natural resources at this time. Yeah, the line will connect number 0.3 Vännäs with 0.9 Vindeln up in the north, and they've currently got to 0.7. That's where they've stopped at the moment.
Do I happen to know who would be the engineer up there, or is there with my family? Who would be laying this? This is a state effort, or
Well, there is some context to be had in here, which I'll give you as a freebie, because you have a railroad building family railroad building connection in your background. The fact that railroads are being built is indicative that certain movements have been happening behind the scenes. Now, again, for historical context, Sweden was quite late to the game in setting up its railroad network in comparison to the rest of Europe. And the first public railways for public transportation didn't open until midway through the century, mid to the 18th century. And a few years after that, it was decided that the state would then build the main rail lines that connect the major points in the country. But they kind of dithered for quite a while. There was lots of debate and lots of hesitancy on the scale of on the side of central government to actually initiate these works, not just for the cost, but for a couple of other political factors as well. They worried about whether they put the lines too close to the coast, whether they'd be then active targets in any military conflict that occurred, and there was lots of reasons why they ended up dithering. But ultimately, the government decided to put their faith in a colonel of the naval mechanical corps, a man by the name of Nils Eriksson, and he was essentially all responsibility for all the main lines that were to be mapped out in Sweden fell on his shoulders. Roll round about a decade or so later, when he eventually retired, they realized the amount of work that had been put on his shoulders had to be carried by two government bodies afterwards. So whereas one guy had previously overseen this massive expansion of the rail project, it's now down to two government bodies to do this. The Building Bureau and the Traffic Bureau. So any expansion of the rail network has to have the Traffic Bureau be involved in this time. There are various private railroads which have been set up mainly for business purposes, but they're moderately few and far between. And the first of those went live about 3 years after the main rail boom started happening. But they normally fall under the auspice of the local city council. So if someone has got a railroad expansion between these two existing branches of the main rail network, you'll guarantee definitely the traffic bureau has been involved. I mean, the letter confirmed that anyway. The city, the town mayor will be another point of contact that would have had some involvement in this, because it ultimately funds that funnels from the city government to this being built. And there's probably going to be a business interest in here as well, because, as mentioned, that line particularly that runs from Umeå up to the northwest, its primary reason for that is to get raw goods from the mountains and from the forest in the far north down to the port to then be exported. So you would bet your bottom krona that there is definitely going to be some business element at play here.
I'm just going to make sure everything is in order, that everything's taken care of, that everything, that our food lotters remain stocked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with Franz's recent addition, you have a guard at the castle now, so that if anyone, and once you leave, you don't have to worry about the hungry locals suddenly storming the castle and trying to rob you out of house and home. So always a good bonus.
I'd like to set something up so that some of our food is distributed while we're gone to the locals. Because
Right.
here it would just go bad, and we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, in June, the castle garden should be producing some produce that would just perish. Some of it can be preserved, but also maybe a little something to the Fairy Queen every week, just so that she knows we're thinking of her. We don't come back to a cursed castle.
Yeah.
Been on good terms with Queen Mia Dreamer for a long time now, so all good on that front.
There might be strawberries coming in. I imagine that they'd like some strawberries.
Yeah, we'll leave something something very nice.
I mean, I'm sure she'll understand that we're broke as hell right now.
Fairies don't have much understanding for human problems. Yeah. But, there are poor people in Uppsala that could benefit from our generosity. All right. So I'm packed and ready.
Okay. Anything from Oscar or Franz that you want to do before setting off?
While they're researching in the library, I'm flipping through books for pictures. I like a good wood engraving. That's about all the library is useful for as far as I'm concerned.
This might be coming later, but when do we spend our resources?
Immediately after we've done this.
All right, never mind then.
Okay, so if you're itching at the bit and counting up your coins in your purse, this is the point where we collectively shake the society's what do they call those little piggy banks? That's it. To see how many coins you've got in the coffers. So underneath your attributes, you have a resources level. Roll that many d6 and look for sixes. We total up how many you get as a group, and then that is your spending power.
Whoa! I got 4 6s.
4? Wow. Okay.
Wow.
2.
Got 1.
Oh, it's up to 7 already. Okay.
You rich people. Goose egg.
Nothing from Valentina, nothing from Oscar? Oh,
Nothing,
unsurprising.
nothing from me. Yeah.
Okay, you have a whopping 7 points to be able to spend. So each of you has a list of basically the equipment, services, and other such items that you can buy in the game. The availability rating listed by that piece of equipment, weaponry, whatever it is you want to purchase, that's how many points out of that 7 points it will cost. So this is where have a think about some things you want to get. There are a couple of things I can suggest. Bear in mind you've got that much. Having something like a field kitchen would probably go down really well with all the workers out there, and especially in a time of famine. That is something you could easily afford with all those points.
Good point.
Yes, field kitchen. We need perhaps, I don't know if I see any hunting
Equipment.
There's a couple of things to do with hunting. You can go with a hunting trap, which is you detecting people sneaking up. Now that would use vigilance, or hunting equipment, which is you can use that to help you find trails in the woods, because that uses investigation, for example. So being able to more quickly and accurately find your prey. There's also, if you head down, I think it's in there is a dog. One of the dogs gives you a hunting dog. There we go. That gives you quite a whopping bonus. That gives you bonuses on vigilance, close combat, and investigation. So you can basically set the dog to go off and track like scents through the woods. I mean, Oscar
Ah.
has a dog anyway, Hulda, but I
Yeah.
don't believe Hulda's a hunting dog. I think Hulda's a pet dog, so it only gives you a +1.
That's right.
We'll
Hunting cannon it is.
Oh, you can get the cannon, yeah.
we need some hurricane lamp.
That's exactly. Hurricane lamp seems sound since we're looking at a night infestation primarily. How long is the night? We're only a couple of weeks from the solstice.
Aha. I was about to say, especially as you've been up there, you will be aware of when these timescales here. Sunrise in mid-June, 2:30 a.m. Sunset, 11 p.m. So there's only
great deal.
3.5 hours of dark, and even then, it's not pitch black. It's more of a twilight.
Right.
Yeah, up there, the twilight zone lasts for a few weeks.
Well, I'd be hunting equipment
Hunting equipment,
Yes.
hurricane
lamp.
lamp.
and the dog. You want to bring a dog?
The field
Yes, the field
kitchen.
kitchen.
That's 6.
Dog is more than that. So
I don't see anything like an axe.
right.
Fear.
I think axe would be under weaponry, so that's on page 3. So that's damage to availability 1. So if you want to spend 1 point, you can grab an axe.
Yes, to chop wood.
These are workers. Wine might go well if you want to ingratiate yourself, but the kitchen probably is better.
We don't need drunks. We need firelight or
People tend to get a little festive around the midsummer, even without being plied with extra wine from without. The frequency of drowning this time of year goes up a bit as people drink by lakes and the days last.
If
we
there
have
is
a
lake,
field
they
kitchen.
remember the drought.
That's true.
A field kitchen, a hunting dog, a hurricane lamp,
6, right?
We could get a rope.
and an axe. We could probably buy a rope. I mean, not buy a rope, borrow a rope when we're there.
We could
A
also
separate
borrow.
rope.
They should have axes as well.
They will have axes and saws.
That's true. That is true. We have 1 point. Is that what we have left?
Yeah.
Oh, the field kitchen is 2. The hunting dog is 3, so that brings you up to 5. The hurricane lamp is 1 more, so that brings you up to 6.
Oh, we
have
could get
1.
bandages. Bandages could be useful.
In case of injuries. Not bandages.
Although the workers are not showing up injured, they're not showing up.
They're not showing up.
Well, plenty of injuries can occur during a rail laying. You could blast your eye out with a spike or whatever.
Old Phineas Gage.
Exactly.
Is there a kit to start a fire?
Yeah, tinder.
Yeah, tinderbox is 1 point.
What do you think?
Hmm.
Right.
Well, the field kitchen must be able to generate heat. A field kitchen that had no heating implement would be
That's
able to use
reasonable.
with a salad bowl.
Lamp as well.
Well, that's the hurricane lamp. A compass? Where's the compass?
You've
Does
already,
somebody
I
carry a
already have
compass?
the compass. Yes, I already have a
I already
compass.
have some of the compass.
Bronze comes with a compass instead of an eye.
And I already have like candles and stuff like that if I want to do my scrying. It's that.
Bringing your equipment.
Yeah, I'm bringing all that.
lovely paraphernalia.
Yes. I still think a little wine with these peasants would go well. A little liquor.
I also have some rum. So
Mm.
Where did you get rum? My goodness.
a sailor always carries
Yeah.
rum on him.
I think the answer is the West Indies.
That hip flask never seems to empty.
Excellent.
You bring some weak poison to kill people with.
Let's hope that's
So
not to take.
the stuff that we naturally have with us, like writing utensils, we don't
Yeah.
need to get more of those.
Some of you will have equipment that gives you a bonus on that. Like I think that's actually one of the things the writer has is pen, paper, and such. But just to make notes and be otherwise functionally, hey, I'm going to remember this, I'm going to write it down. You can have that kind of equipment with you. That's not. We don't go into that much minutia. Just for the writer, it gives bonuses to certain types of roles.
I imagine
Instead of, go ahead.
I imagine everyone has a pocket knife, for example.
Yeah.
Or a normal person carries some small blade, just because.
Instead of the wine, let's bring some strong liquor. We can use it as an antiseptic if we need to, or we can drink it.
I agree. Yes.
Thinking of knives, I think one of your party from a previous exploit maybe have chosen the weapons corridor, which would give everyone access to a simple knife. So that would be something that you can each choose. I think it gives you a availability 1 weapon.
Oh, yes, that's right. We have a cannon at the castle.
That's liberated from your previous chapter house that you visited. Yes.
A great deal of trouble to get that cannon all the way back.
So you could grab an axe.
Well, we figure they'll all have axes. They're chopping down the forest.
True.
In fact, actually, other items, because you've also got the cellar vaults, other items that have been stored in there from previous exploits. You've got the cannon that was stored in there, a suit of armor, not animate now, thankfully, and also a rifle that's in there too.
Oh,
You've
my
also
God!
You looted a lot of stuff from that previous chapter house that you went to. That's for viewers that haven't seen that adventure. Have a scroll through the archives and have a look at Athenaeum. That scenario was. And there's also the armory as well.
We have an armory
got there. Which just have
but we're not looking to start a war. We're just going up there to investigate some disappearances.
Nevertheless, I'll take the rifle.
Yeah.
Might be best.
Field kitchen, hunting dog, hurricane lantern, and liquor.
That sounds like a party.
Aquavit. Or I don't know what Swedish is aquavit. Something we'd have, I guess.
Probably very close, yeah.
The armory, because this may also be interest or certainly appealing for some folks here, those of maybe military persuasion, means that you can bring a melee weapon or an armor from the availability level 2 without using resources. So if you want to grab armor, or say something a bit more beefy, like a rifle is availability 2, then each of you can grab one of those.
I don't have any experience shooting, so.
Yeah, your hunter's probably off in the local forest bagging game at this point, so that's why they're not here in the castle.
In times of famine, being able to pick up some storable meats.
Rabbit, squirrel, possum.
Locals, if they don't move quick enough.
The most dangerous game.
Well, I may grab a bow then. I'm fairly good that.
I've tried to tell you that cannibalism is just not a good thing. I don't know why, but it's probably prions. We just don't know about prions yet.
Yeah, you have some very educated minds in Uppsala. Maybe they're ahead of their time. Right, a bow. So you've got the stats for it in the document. So it would be damage 1. Importantly, can be used between range 0 and 2, so you can use it up close and personal as well if need be. It gives you a +1 bonus and is only availability 1. Or you can go for a little bit further up. You can go for either a longbow or crossbow.
Longbow. It just seems awful long, but maybe the longbow then. If I don't know if we'll ever use it, but
No, they have their advantages. They're not going to make much sound, at least definitely not compared to boom, like the cannon.
exactly.
Probably you'd only be able to shoot in a straight down line down the track. In a forest, they're not the most efficient, but we might be wanting to be far down the track after all.
I'm gonna pick up a quarterstaff since we're gonna be traipsing around in the woods.
Yep.
Let's grab a
Nice
stick
big
when we're
hunk of
there.
This is a sturdy stick.
This is a very nice stick.
It's straight and cured.
Well,
Yes.
are we ready? Are we put these things together?
I think that's all your points from the piggy bank are expended at this point. So now it's the time to do that Indiana Jones red line on the map. So with a little walk across town to the train station, you can board a train there that heads north, and then begin your 17-hour trip. Takes about, say, 570 kilometers to get that far.
Cool.
So on the train, you've got plenty of time to yourself. Have a look through your sheet, and each of you can choose one skill to get a later advantage to. So this will give you a single time +2 bonus dice to a roll that uses that skill. Then just describe what kind of practice you're doing using that skill on the train on the way up.
As the father said, the train is probably not. I mean, I'm sure they put on fewer cars when they know that there is not a lot of travel in that direction. But is it fairly sparsely occupied nonetheless?
Yeah, it's not particularly busy. I mean, it's definitely got people on there because, as mentioned, it is the main line going from north south. Although more people you would expect are probably heading south rather than they are heading north, especially with the amount of trouble with the famine there is the further north you go. So more likely you've got people coming south rather than going north. But yeah, there'll probably be about 25% occupancy in the cabins.
I'm thinking that it might be an interesting exercise to practice stealth, especially during the later hours in the sleeper car, seeing, if I could look through people's papers and, move from empty seat to empty seat without being noticed by anyone at all. It whiles away the hours.
And I think I shall add it to vigilance.
I'm adding mine to. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I just found it amusing. You got one person skulking around and sneaking, and the other one looking for them. So
Yes.
We're playing hide and seek up to Umea.
I'll spend mine on observation, or I'll focus on that.
polishing a crystal ball.
Yeah, meditate a little bit, get my mind straight.
Mm-hmm. Good. Especially as you're getting ready to commune with the spirits of the dead.
Yes.
Are they dead though?
Well, that's
hope.
definitely, that will definitely tell you whether they are or not.
I'm going to do investigation. I'm going to be reading about Hercule Poirot or whatever. I don't know if he's around now.
Agatha Christie, are pretty certain hasn't been born yet.
Damn.
That'd be Poe though, so you could at least read about Auguste Dupin.
Purloined letter translated into Swedish.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm also going to take investigation as well. And what I'm going to do is practice with my camera, take pictures out the window.
Very, very flash having a piece of tech that of that extravagance.
Yeah.
With your camera.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got the fold up legs as well. So if you do want to have a good stationary view, but you can carry the thing around definitely. So it's not like you have to have someone carry the thing for you. So you can move around with it. Right. In which case then, sunset falls on the first day, and then about 3 hours later, pops back right back up again as you are that far north. And you roll into Umea about mid-morning, and then there's the little bit of waiting around at the train station, probably nominally grabbing what breakfast you can there from what services do have food to sell at extravagant prices. But the game does not worry about putting you down to the minutiae of spending resource points on food. Just as more thematically, it's a thing at this point. So a little bit of time passes, and then you've got the ride from Umea to Vännäs. Now, Vännäs, if you were to look at it from orbit, this weird concept of being able to look up from the sky and look down on places, that'll never happen. That's fantasy. You would be able to see that the train line almost goes like an S through the town. So it comes in from the northeast and passes by the steelworks that I mentioned that Oscar is aware of, then bends down to go north-south, and then at the bottom of town then curves out to go down towards the southwest. The only point, well, not the only point, the point that makes that blatantly obvious where the track bends round is that's you can see is where the spire of the local church is. That is St. John's, I think it is. Remember? Yeah, it's one of it's a local church. It's like like all the churches in Sweden. Well, not all. The vast majority of them are all Lutheran, as the good father here will be able to tell you about.
Mostly high Lutheran.
Yeah, yeah. We got St. John's Church. That's the name of the church. So on the south side of Vännäs. And as you pull into the area, the railway station here is actually quite big. One of the things that a lot of the train stations here, and again, this will be one that Valentina is very familiar with a background in the family business, as it were. The train stations are usually large. They have big platforms. They are spacious. They'll have a large courtyard outside the train station where then various social activities can take place there, or various gatherings can be allowed to happen. As you come in, you can see that this big scale has already allowed for the expansion of the train network to head north, because you can see the extra platform that's been built already to accommodate the line heading north. It's all cordoned off by fences, but you can see there is a gentleman there on the other side of the fence leaning up against an engine on the tracks with a small carriage behind it, and as expected, a small flatbed for pulling equipment behind it. Just holding a placard with the hastily scrawled word "Society" written on it. And he's just waiting there, leaning up against the train, slowly kind of trying to wake himself up as he starts nodding forward, and then kind of forcing himself up again. And just watching as people come on and off the train, heading in and out of town, because he doesn't know what you look like, but evidently he has been sent to greet you.
Hello.
Oh, hello there.
Well,
You
with the society, yes.
Oh, great. Oh, I was beginning to wonder if anyone was going to come, to be honest. Well, good to meet you. And he extends a hand.
Yes. And
Madam Baronson.
Oh yeah, she's currently up at the work site, up at our camp. My name's Lucas Fries. I've been kind of assigned to you as our or your kind of hired dog's body, for want of a better term. okay, your chauffeur using, and he taps the engine behind him, using our old faithful here to get you
Lovely.
up and down the track and provide anything anything you might need. So, are you all good? Had a rested journey up here, or?
As much as we could, yes. Yes, we got our stuff with us. Let's load it on board.
Yeah, he goes and opens the door into the carriage. So I'm sorry, it's not particularly grandiose or luxury travel here. It's just wooden benches on each side of the carriage compartment that'll get you up to the work site, and we may not be able to go all the way. It depends if they've repaired the repaired work last night from the last bombing that took place.
Bombing.
Bombing.
Oh,
Yeah, didn't the boss explain so we've been the line has been sabotaged from here to the work site?
Oh, I see.
She said sabotage. She didn't specify bombing. It doesn't seem like a very mystical sort of intervention.
Oh no, this is very, very unmystical. Especially one of our poor workforce, man by the name of what was his name? Ingvar. That was it. The only one of us that's been injured so far by all this. But yeah, there's been a series of bombings that have happened over the course of the last couple of weeks, or last few weeks anyway.
Hey, dynamite, perhaps.
Oh, we expect it's dynamite. I mean, that usually makes a big enough boom. I mean, we don't know. I mean, well, we're assuming it's dynamite, but we don't have any in the camp. We don't need it. All we're doing is felling trees. So more axes and saws than you can shake a stick at, but we don't have any dynamite on store.
Goodness.
Have any more guards gone missing since she wrote us on Tuesday?
And he starts counting, and there's only 4 that have gone missing so far.
And
Yes.
how recent was the last bombing?
Last night. So
Why?
that's why I say they may have finished repairing the train track,
Well,
heading up that way.
what is that? There's no chance that they're going to blow us up when we're traveling, is there?
Well, hopefully not during the day. All the blasts that have happened so far have all been at night.
And we'll be there before
Oh
evening.
yeah, I mean it'll only take about half an hour, 40 minutes or so to get up there from here. If you want to grill him for some more details, rather than me verbalize it and you take notes, this is the summary that he can give you, or at least the timeline of recent events. Yeah, they pitched their current camp back on Monday, the 11th of May. I've included the moon phases here to give you an idea of the ambient lighting that's in the sky at this point, because even though with a new moon, there's still going to be a degree of twilight. It just gives you an idea of how light and dark it is. They then had their first bombing. They then had, in response to the bombing, they had a set of guards that were then assigned to them, basically additional workforce that the town council authorized to go up there. The first bombing had Ingvar, as your dear friend has said, Ingvar Isaacson was the only worker that had been injured so far by any of these bombings, because otherwise a lot of them have been taking place further to the south of the camp. All the bombings have only ever been to the south of where the current camp is. They're almost like leapfrogging up the proposed line of the train, or what will be the train line. So they're kind of clearing an area, running the tracks up to a point, and then the camp will go to the new railhead, and then they'll start clearing from that point on, and then rinse and repeat. The time when the guards are always reported missing is always 4 a.m. because that's shift change. So at some point between the 8 hours before that, so 8 o'clock in the evening till 4 a.m. that next morning, they are going missing. They're stationed at a particular point along the railroad, but they're given instructions whereby they can move half a kilometer up and half a kilometer down the train line from that point. So they're covering a whole kilometer distance in total.
and they're armed with what?
Basically truncheons. They're not round with any firearms or anything particularly heavy, because again that would involve cost on the part of the
Right,
local
right.
authorities
How
to
would
go
they how would they signal then if they did see something?
shouting, yelling, making a loud noise, harsh language.
Yeah, they're quite a ways from camp in some cases, or could be.
Yeah, they seem to be. And this is where what your friend here will Freeze will confirm. They have hired more people as more guards have gone missing, so not just to fill the gaps in their ranks, but as more bombings have happened, there's generally been a case of, well, we've got to have more people out there to see what's going on and hopefully catch whoever's doing this. So there's a growing number of people out there.
Valentina, you should see if there's some correlation in the times and dates. I'm not as good at analyzing these sorts of things, but
Hmm.
in many cases, it looks like there's only 2 days in between, and then some days
Right.
there's more.
Well, maybe our military man here may see a pattern.
Nope.
Well,
You were sabotaging.
I'm afraid so far that my conclusion is, perhaps because I tend to think on the Titanic side, something like a troll or an ogre only can come out at night, makes such a large destructive force. That could be it.
Maybe it might be best that we investigate one of these bombing sites first. If we're going along the track, would you mind stopping?
Yeah, well, we can certainly stop at any of these. And also, for folks thinking of pattern recognition, this is a visual aid to put things in perspective rather than map it all out. So this is a visual representation of where each event happens along the railroad.
So it's actually moving back and forth.
Yes, they start usually at a kilometer milestone, but then they're given a instruction that they can patrol half a mile plus or minus the point where they start off. So hence that's the grayed out area. That's
half a kilometer.
Yeah. If folks want to analyze stuff here, you can give me logic and learning rolls to give me to give an idea of any patterns that you might be able to discern here.
I'm gonna try 6 dice.
3 dice, no 6s.
Nothing.
Okay, nothing from the father, nothing from Mosca.
I got 1.
2.
1 from Helena, 2 from Valentina. Anything from Franz?
Sorry, give me a second.
So he's thinking.
No, nothing.
Okay, so just between Helena and Valentina. Okay. Helena, then, looking at this from a kind of practical perspective about where the bombings are taking place, the things you've immediately notice are the first one happening half a kilometer south of the camp, close enough that it would definitely be noticed. The next one, way further south, almost as if that is an immediate overcompensation for the fact they maybe hurt someone on the first bomb. There definitely seems to be a bit of an emotional gap here. If they wanted to hurt people, you would think they would have put it closer to the camp, but the fact they've gone much further away implies that hurting people is definitely a very, very far down the list of their priorities. But also, looking at each point, if you'll notice that they're all in half a kilometer increments, the only increment that hasn't been hit so far is the 2.5 kilometer mark. So if they're going to bomb anywhere next, you think it would probably be the 2.5 kilometer mark. And also, looking at the more practical end of the bombings, the timings for the first and second bombings match the 6th and the 7th. So it implies if they're working on a cycle where the earliest bombing takes place at about 12:30 in the morning, so 12:30 a.m., and the latest takes place at 1:30 a.m., and they've now gone back to 1 and 1:15, you're thinking the next bombing will follow the same pattern. It will take place on the timing of the third bombing at 12:45. So you have an idea of the time and the location where the next bomb will go off. For Valentina, you end up looking more specifically towards the guards and where, there any pattern that is obvious from this. They only ever go missing on a Sunday. So the holy day of the week. And with your second degree of success, you're tracking that this could almost be a pattern of movement, that if something started, let's say if the first bomb woke something up and it started to travel back further down the train line heading south, it could have got from 0.5 to 1 kilometer mark when the first guard went missing, then from the 1 kilometer mark to the 1.5 when the second guard went missing, the 1.5 to 2 when the third guard went missing, and then the 2 kilometer to 2.5 kilometer when the fourth guard went missing. You get the impression that something is traveling down the train line. And it's corresponding that as it moves, a guard vanishes.
So maybe we have people doing the bombing, waking something or disturbing something in the woods, in the forest here, and then it's taking it out on the workers, or at least the guards.
It might be less taking it out on them than just something that woke with a hunger.
Well, the guards are probably not. The people doing the bombing are probably fleeing. The guards are staying up and down the track. Maybe it's the guards are opportunist. It's an opportunistic take.
The
bomber
Sunday, doesn't seem to want to harm.
No.
I think it increases the likelihood, Valentina, that you'll be able to communicate with somebody, because if it's a hungry thing, and they weren't tucked away to ferry.
No. I was thinking maybe that first guard to call forth, but we'll see.
Maybe somebody knows something and they're trying to chase whatever it is away or corral it.
Lucas, rather. So they've been replacing guards as they go missing. What's the total force? Was it 8 or 6?
Well, we've got 15 at the moment.
15.
We only started with 5 to begin with, but see, as words being given back to the mayor to say, look, we're having more damage, more people. We need more people. We need more boots on the ground to help protect the train line.
And no one of these 15 guards, 19 altogether, reports anything unusual or any indication of.
No, they've just not seen anyone. I mean, I suppose part of the problem will be, and he kind of gestures to either side of the train as it's rolling along, which is a good segue to describing the area as you're heading north. Apart from obviously the steel mill on the outskirts of town, as you roll on past that, one of the big characteristics of Swedish railway is that these are not tracks which are driven straight through the woods and then there's like an arm's gap either side of the train line. There is massive areas cleared either side that provide a huge fire break or huge gap for later development or expansion of the rail network. So if you wanted multiple train lines to pass through an area, there is huge clearings either side. if it's in the middle of the dark, in the middle of the night, if it's someone hiding out in the trees, that could be dozens of meters off to one side or double that going the other side. It's very easy for people to hide out there, and for likewise the guards not to see much unless it's a very, very big moon in the sky that maybe you've given them help at the time.
Well, I would see that whoever's setting off these bombs have access to dynamite if it is truly a human force. So the mines, they're mining in the area?
There's not so much mining here. Most of the mining takes place further up in the northwest. But I mean, we're on a road that caters for supplies being sent further north. I'm sure anyone that wanted to take a day trip to Amaya could easily get such supplies and bring them here. So it's accessible material, yeah, for sure.
But they wouldn't just sell it to anyone, would they? Dynamite?
Right.
But
Depends
someone coming into town buying sticks of dynamite.
They could say that they're trying to remove a tree stump from their property.
True, but maybe so much at
I
the
think
time.
it's regulated.
And
I
then
suppose it depends on how much they want to grease wheels or grease
right,
wheels.
right. So somebody has the means to do such a thing.
If Valentina, if we know who's missing, then you might be able to use your.
Yes. We've got the guards' names.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also thinking did you displace anyone? Was there any
People living out
houses,
here?
people around that I know when we do lay tracks every once in a while, you have to move some people.
Yeah, no, we've been fairly lucky on that front. I mean, we passed an existing timber mill, which we had a little bit of a diversion that we had to do. We built like a railway siding to connect up the timber mill to be able to get their wood out of here. Probably at that point, the train as it's rolling past fields, and then it goes into another patch of woodland, and then there's more fields with this just dead, burnt, scorched crops either side of you, expanding out as far as the eye can see, and then another tree-lined area. You do indeed pass the siding that he describes, where there is a little timber mill that's been set up, and then a village slightly to the north of that. He says that we've been quite lucky on how we've been able to plot the route, that it doesn't immediately run through anyone's existing home. There's a couple of areas where it's skirted around the edges of farmland property, but we haven't had to displace anyone. That's been one headache we've been quite lucky to avoid, because I understand that's definitely a potential problem when these kind of projects get built, from what I've been told.
Right.
I recall from our investigation, is the Pilquist estate anywhere nearby?
Oh, that old place. It's about a kilometer or 2 kilometers east of the train line from the camp where we're based.
So you're not crossing its property or anything?
Oh no, a long way from there.
Yeah. Well, best get on.
Now, if Valentina did want to have a séance on the way up, you've certainly got plenty of time. You can basically draw down the blinds in the back cabin while your driver is up at the engine, and you can see what turns up.
If I feel this is the proper, if I can achieve my state that I need to in this, but
you understand I can't participate in such a thing.
You may have to go up with the engine, Father.
I'll go up with the engine.
So you don't hear anything offensive.
I just charge you to take great care. Demons can appear as spirits of light.
Yes. So yeah, if I can set a spot and it's not too bumpy, I'll set up my candles and get the crystal ball out and just start to commune. Calling for the I think it was the Hannes Sundin
That's
Sunday
it. That's the
was
first,
the
the first
first
card that
one.
went missing.
So
Yep.
focusing on that name, putting all the shades down, few candles lit.
Are you inviting anyone that's left in the carriage to assist?
Oh, I can. Yeah, I mean, anyone who would like.
I don't mind.
I'll
I think
participate.
they're curious. I don't share the father's superstitions, although he's not wrong about demons.
No, not wrong.
Franz, are you going to jump in as well?
I think I'll skulk around in the shadows, just observe.
Okay, you're going to observe rather than actively participate. Okay.
Mhm.
So between Helena and Oscar, do either of you have any points in the observation skill?
I have one.
I have 2.
Okay. So you both have at least 1 point. That's what you need. So Valentina, you can gain a +2 bonus to your observation roll.
And then I've got, okay, +2, and then I probably spend my +2 now.
Up to you. So it's any point in the scenario you want to use it.
Maybe I'll. This gives me 7 dice. So I'll hold off on the extra +2.
Okay, 7 dice is usually, well, famous last words, usually enough.
Yes, it is the famous last one. Oh, can I push this?
You certainly can, yeah. So take a mental condition. Mental conditions, obviously, going forward, you don't take away the dice for the condition for the roll you're about to make, but for subsequent rolls, for every condition you have, will minus the dice off your roll. So mental conditions take off my mental rolls. Physical conditions take off physical-based rolls.
All right. Yeah, I think so I just pick one of the mental conditions.
Yeah.
I'll be quite angry with this. Now if I push the roll, can I add the 2 this time?
I don't see why you couldn't. So yeah, if you want to, then
Concentrating harder.
ditch effort.
Yeah, this is just not the right place. On a moving train. Oh, there you go. 2 successes.
Okay, that's good. So, right. Yeah, so you get a little bit frustrated. It's like, I call upon you to come forward, and then about 30 seconds have passed, and he still hasn't turned up. So it's a case of banging your fist on the floor and said, God damn it, Hans, just come here and
Oh,
die.
yeah. Well,
Yeah. And at that point, you all do start to hear something. It sounds like someone stepping or coming towards you. The shadows in the car as well have lengthened considerably. Even with the blinds down, there should be plenty of ambient light coming through. But even as you're looking around, it's almost as if someone is turning down a dial on the sun outside until there is just complete darkness that surrounds the entirety of the inside of the cabin. And from Franz, you are completely enshrouded in black, as the others are gathered near this crystal ball and the candles that have been set up in the middle. And this thing starts I say thing, this person at least with their 2 legs, starts stomping their way past you as if they're carrying some heavy weight. And the sight that greets all of you coming out of the dark is, imagine someone that is trying to do limbo under a pole, where they're bent back, or in this case bent forward, rather, trying to get underneath a very low bar. The feet are still remain stand up, but then their legs and the rest of their body are almost forming a banana shape going forward, as if they have been hit by an incredibly large and heavy force that has almost pancaked them. The body is split open. The head is just a mash of flesh and bone. What's left of a face can just about open its mouth and talk. And these eyes that have been forced out of the skull, sliding down its face, look towards your group and say, I thought I heard someone call my name. You can all give me a fear check, which say in good old Cthulhu terms, sanity rolls. So
Okay.
this, you calculate your dice pool for this. You take your logic or empathy of one of those of your choice. You then get to add 1 extra dice if you have the brave talent. Yeah, and you get an extra 2 dice if you have safety in numbers as another talent. And then because you're all members of the society, because you need 3 other people, you get an additional bonus up to a maximum of +3 if you have 3 other people with you. You have that magic number because there are 4 of you here, so you all get an additional +3.
Oh.
+3 dice.
Yeah, +3 dice. Any modifiers are always extra dice that you roll. So yeah, additional 3. You are looking for a single 6 for this. This is only a fear rating 1 check.
2 6s. I've seen this before.
I only got 1 out of quite a lot of dice, but
Yeah.
But 1 is what you need, so you're not flipping out. So that's the main thing.
it is horrible.
Looks like Helena's fine.
Yep.
And Valentina, you're holding it together.
Yes. Yes.
Right. In which case, yeah, this pancaked, crushed body of someone that is saying they are Han comes forward. Says, "I thought I heard someone call my name." What?
I did. I reached out to you. I'm sorry you are in such a state.
What state?
You look injured.
Yeah, I feel like it feels like I've been hit by a train.
Did you see what hit you?
I don't think anything hit me. I was, the last I remember, I was walking up the track. I'm a security guard, and I heard this crying off in the tree line, and there's this baby that I found literally in the trees, just discarded in the middle of nowhere.
No.
And I thought I've got to get this poor kid to safety. Got to find something, and I put him on my shoulders, and I turned towards the camp, and he started screaming and kind of indicating back to head further south. And I thought, well, maybe that's where his mother or father or his family or wherever he lives. He must know where he's going. So I started to carry him further down the train line, and he just time passed, and maybe it was because I was getting tired and it was late, but it just got heavier and heavier, and I was more tired, and in the end I just staggered, and then I heard your voice, and I came here.
Oh, what an ordeal.
Everything looks a bit weird from this position, and he just turning the remains of his shattered head in both directions, taking in the group before you.
And you never thought to set the baby down to rest?
I don't know. I guess I must have tried. I mean, yeah, I must have tried. I couldn't get it off my shoulders.
Oh, and you only heard the crying baby. You didn't hear anything else?
No, I mean I guess he was a he anyway. I respected his privacy. I didn't go looking too much. He was really quiet on my shoulders after I started heading further south. So pretty much content that I was heading in the right direction.
Do you think you were headed back to the little timber camp, or
I don't know. I was
you were just headed south?
I was relying on him to give me instructions of where to go.
Interesting. Relying on the baby.
How old do you think this baby was?
Probably no more than a few months at most.
And what is it? Swaddled in something?
Yeah, like an old sackcloth wrapped around his midsection.
And just tucked away in a tree or hanging from the tree?
No, literally just sat by a big birch tree.
Ah.
Valentina, at this point, do you like ask for words for his family or anything? Is there some way you release these things?
Yeah, what would be my typical, do I dare tell him? That's probably not, do I dare tell him what yeah, he's bad.
That's completely up to you. You can either dismiss him by just saying thank you, you can go now, and he'll head back into the limitless void, or you can release him by telling him what's happened to him, and that may help him pass on to whatever.
Yeah, I think that might be best. Anything else? Like Helena, Oscar?
I think we've got a picture of it. I don't know what it means, but I think the sooner that thing is at rest, the happier I'll be.
I'll reach out, and I think this is the end of the track for you. You've passed over. You've crossed over. You were doing a wonderful thing, saving a baby. You should be very proud. Something happened along the way. It's very sad, but I'm sorry. You died.
After a moment of passing very quickly through the different stages of denial, you can see there's just this cloud of realization passes over the remains of this poor man's face, and he just starts crying. I mean, one eye still limping off the side of that, down the side of his face. It's a very weird sight to behold. But
I'll cry with them, and
one eye manages to look up at you as you can see his outline becoming more translucent.
Is there something you want me to pass on to loved ones?
I no messages, but just a wish. If someone was responsible for this, send them to me.
Vengeance is not very good. The afterlife, take heed. Don't carry that with you.
And with that, whatever is left of his spirit dissipates, and light starts to slowly return, and you find yourself back in the train cabin. And Father Victor, you're up front. You had a nice little train ride. There's plenty of smoke billowing over the top. You even maybe get to use the train whistle if you want.
I'm playing my violin for the train conductor. Keep him cheery.
We'll call him back though, and relay everything that happened.
Like some great burden on his shoulders.
Yeah, I think that baby wasn't quite just a baby. Seemed to have latched on, even kind of directed him a bit. Controlled him.
It reminds me a great deal of the St. Christopher story of St. Christopher picking up Jesus and carrying him across the river. The ancient fathers of the Christian church used to live in the desert and put baskets on their backs, and every time they committed a sin, they would toss a rock into the basket, walk about with their great burden of sin on their shoulders.
I'd say this guy had a basket of about 860 pounds.
It was quite full.
But I don't think it was his sin.
But I can think of no Vaesen that I've read about that would match such a strange. Perhaps you're more experienced with such things than I.
Oh, you say that, but everyone can, because you've got some very key. Because Vaesen in the setting have like certain calling cards that
Yeah,
if there are certain things that happen, then you can attribute them to like one Vaesen over another. There's like there are certain hallmarks they leave which can help to identify them. And this weight and the baby are two things that are very indicative of it being a particular Vaesen. So
seems
you
pretty
can give
key.
me a logic and learning rolls. You only need one success because you have got those two big pieces of info.
I got one.
Oh,
I got one.
3.
three, the brighter. Excellent.
Got 3.
Doing
Right.
your research.
In which case, there's certain piece of information that the likes of Oscar and Father would definitely know, but Helena will give you some more contextual information about why this is so horrendous and other forms this thing can take. One of the worst crimes that you can commit in society at this point in time is murder. Obviously, it's the one. It's a cardinal sin, but worse still amongst murder is the murder of a child, and worse, upping the ante even further, is the murder of a child by its own mother.
Mm.
Infanticide, there is only one punishment under Swedish law for this, and that is the execution of the mother. So, unsurprisingly, there are ghost stories that emerge from this particular crime and stories of this crime having been committed. Now, if you were a mother that, for whatever reason, you didn't want your offspring, this is usually done quite early when the child hasn't even been named. They are babies. You, for whatever reason, maybe the stories of mothers having been raped by soldiers in occupied parts of the world that then give birth 9 months later to obviously a child they didn't want. So they murder the child, or in instances maybe like this where there's a famine, it's another mouth they can't afford to feed or haven't got the resources to be able to feed, they will murder them. If it's in an urban setting, the bodies are traditionally either buried under the floorboards or buried in the wall of a house. Or if it's out in a rural environment like this, maybe just taken out into the woods and either left to die or murdered and then buried in a unmarked grave. Now, the myling, especially in a urban, or rather, especially in a rural environment, there are stories attributed to it where a traveller is passing through the woods late at night and they hear the call of a child or an infant somewhere off in the dark. They find the kid, and then usually when they're a bit older, they're able to talk with them and converse, like saying, I'm looking to get home. Can you take me home, Mister?" Kind of affair. They will usually take the child, insisting for them to ride on the adult's back, so they are carried towards town. And as they get closer and closer towards the settlement, the child's head inflates like a balloon and becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and heavier as a result, to the point where the poor sap carrying this child, who can't remove it from them because this thing has latched onto them, is ground into the earth. They are flattened like they've been hit by a wrecking ball. And the story goes that the child is basically using more hapless people along the road so that it can get to a church, so that it can get to hallowed ground or consecrated ground where it can then be buried and put to rest. There are other stories in rural and urban environments where, let's say, a mother murders 2 of their unwanted children and then years later marries, let's say 4 years later marries, at their new, what's supposed to be their happiest day of their lives, 2 4-year-old children, so what would have been the age of the children if they had grown up and if they had lived, would walk up the aisle or otherwise interrupt the festivities to call out the mother and say, "We would have been 4 years old, mother, if you hadn't have killed us," and then disappear in front of everyone. So there are 2 paths. Some say that the myling is an entity which is trying to get to hallowed ground to go to rest, and others that show that this thing wants vengeance and wants the crimes of the mother to be revealed. Helena, one of the things that you'll be aware of is the more horrific side of how these things can appear. Not only do they appear as a baby or an infant, depending on how old if the baby was killed while it was young, and that was 4 or 5 years ago, it might appear as a 4 or 5 year old boy or girl when it's discovered. They can also appear as a very monstrous half animal like creature. Again, big bulbous head, alien-like oval black eyes, black wings that come off their back, 2 vestigial legs, and clawed arms. So this thing can fly, and it's a pretty tough opponent if you were to want to try and deal with it physically. To give you an idea of the kind of physical capability of this thing when it decides to go into its monstrous form, it's not a pretty sight.
So judgment for crimes. But
in these cases, innocent victims. Hopefully, Father, you'll be able to put this or these in a comfortable place rather than try to fight it in its animalistic.
I wish that I probably did bring something like holy water. Uh-oh.
Oh,
That
I didn't make a chart. I don't know where he was. I think he was
2
here.
points across to my left.
Yeah, I think that's where he was. Okay.
sorry, I lifted a post-it and hit my.
Because I can make abnormal ground into holy ground by blessing it. Oh, I do have bless.
Also, we'll be making our way toward Gulbek, and there'll be a church there.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
I wonder if anybody if anyone has successfully carried the child all the way to church before it crushed them.
Well, 4 guards are missing. None of them came back with a story.
Yeah.
Carry it this way instead of this way.
I think it kind of wants carried on the back.
I have a question then. What does this have to do with the explosions?
Right. That was. Yes. Maybe if we do stop and look at one of these explosion areas, maybe we can see the head get so big that it explodes. It didn't seem to.
Interesting.
It's not going in the same pattern though. This head creature seems to be heading south towards assumedly a church or for vengeance in the local town, but the explosions are random.
It's possible that maybe the explosions are perpetrated by locals, regular people that
But they
are
would
upset.
only benefit. They would be benefiting from the train line.
Doesn't mean
Could be a
people wouldn't
rival.
still, or a rival company. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the question, is who wouldn't welcome this? Somebody obviously is disturbed, whether it's a local landowner.
They didn't displace anyone. There didn't seem to be any disruption to any of the local industries.
Except perhaps they've displaced the dead baby.
It's
But-
possible.
Well, possible.
They don't really dig. They just chop down trees and flatten the ground.
And it's always going south, so we know it's one of the settlements to the south.
Only church that you're aware of, and again, Oscar having passed through this area before, it's also why I made a point of mentioning it, is the nearest church to the dig site is back in Vännäs with its big spire up on the south side of town.
On the south side of town, and the railroad tracks go in that S shape. Is there a river that goes in an S shape? Is that why they do that?
Yeah, it bends around and follows a river heading out of town.
So Father, often these things have a difficulty crossing bodies of rushing water like that. Maybe that's interfering with its rest.
It's Also, thinking on a logistical front, this was completely virgin woodland that this team have come through here and cut a massive path through. If the baby had been taken out here and murdered, it wouldn't have had any indication of which way to go until the railroad came by and made a single path for it to follow through the woods.
Yeah,
Ah,
that's following that. Yeah, and no, does this particular basin want to be on hollowed ground? Is it looking to
that's
be?
part of the legend, is that it wants to be properly buried.
Although there is a kind of irony here that if you get the miling to the hallowed ground, you can bury the miling. That won't do anything. The thing is, you need to bury the remains of the miling. So you need to find the original body that was the murdered body of the child, and then take that to hallowed ground.
Well,
We know it was found next to in a birch tree, a large birch tree, although I suspect
they're
there's
everywhere.
everywhere here.
That is what the main tree is in this whole area, is birch. It's what Omea
I'm
is
wondering
famous for,
if-
its birch line trees, roads.
I'm wondering if there are small villages around that we could make inquiries. I don't think anybody would confess to such things.
But local gossip, somebody's talked. You
But
have a lady in town that gave birth. It appears as a baby. So
Pregnancy is not an easy thing to hide.
yes. And
No, however, during famine times, children die.
Although we
So-
don't know how old this thing is.
Well, I'm
1 to
just
2
saying
months.
I'm just saying that a woman who wants to get rid of the child because of famine will have an excuse that she can tell her neighbors that the child simply starved to death or died.
On the other hand, when you have a prominent family like the Pelkvists and there's an unwanted pregnancy, they'll just lock the daughter up until the situation can be resolved. And from that place, a couple of kilometers east of here, this would have been the deep woods where they could expect it would never be uncovered.
it's a lot of ground to cover. I mean,
Yeah. Do you have some sort of
Wealthy
infant
people.
detector?
Huh.
Come-
Apparently,
There
they
are-
want to be heard. They cry. I say, if you hear a crying child, don't go in. But
There are telltale signs that you could potentially use to try and find where a corpse might. Now that you're looking for a corpse buried out in the woodland.
you
Bear in mind,
have your dog.
it's drought, so normally there wouldn't be any underlying moisture for plants to grow from. But if there was a lovely nutrient sac, aka the corpse, down underground, that's something where plants could find nourishment from. So if you find a conspicuous green patch out in the woods, that might well be where the corpse is buried.
Also, a
Yeah.
great many mushrooms grow on dead bodies.
Mm-hmm.
a great deal to walk. I mean, could we pull out the map and then start plotting locations? Start pulling. We can kind of know the distances and stuff and where the train was.
We have a sense of where the
We
bombing
get a sense of an area.
should
We
be
have a
expected.
hunting dog.
We'll have a hunting dog, and we know that Sunday is when it attacks, so we have 2 days.
Thursday when the letter arrived,
So it's
and it's Friday when you've arrived here. So it's going to be night
If-
after next.
right. We have 2 nights before it takes another, and it's been moving in a direction. And since the guards aren't doing a damned thing to stop the explosions anyway, maybe we should just keep everyone off the tracks on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Although Banson is worried about being shut down and having all the workers starve and all that. She's under pressure.
How long, Father, would it take to consecrate the ground?
You
Well,
can do
we
it
have
very
to-
quickly. I've got my my prayer book.
So if we did go till Sunday, if we cannot find this poor child, and we have to go to Sunday, if we travel up and down the tracks and in the proper area, maybe one of us may have to take the burden of the child, but if you could consecrate the ground quick enough,
with a
would
place
that
to
work?
be buried. I'll have to research it and see what's actually involved in that, actually consecrating the ground.
It would be a bit more than just a blessing. You really,
Right.
really need a church.
Oh,
It
well,
also,
no one can carry that burden for that long.
it appears as though with each crushed bearer, this entity is getting closer, but that gives us an idea of where the first, the source must be near the first guard. I would assume. So that narrows it. But
That
yes, we're
makes
not going to be able to lay a
sense.
church stone in time. We're going to have to actually.
Actually, it might be that you need a bishop to consecrate a church.
Mm.
So I wouldn't qualify.
You could steal a bishop.
Depends if it's as easy as playing chess.
I don't know if it's necessary that you put the child on your back.
I suspect it kind of forces you to. I mean, it sounds like once you encounter it, that's what you're going to do.
Put it in a wheelbarrow.
You do have your dust that you can sort of evade mental attacks with.
Might be able to hold it. It's a good point. We might be able to hold it, get it onto the train, and get it to
run it over with a train. I'm just spitballing here.
It's a ghost. You killing it's not an option. It's already dead.
Yeah, if we had maybe we could hold it, delay its effect, and then get it to consecrated ground.
This is kind of making my head hurt. I feel like in the meantime, someone should also investigate the explosions.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yes. We definitely don't want to encounter some angry townsfolk or something that it's setting off explosives. It could stop the train if we're trying to flee. So
well, also the unfortunate death of a few guards is nothing compared to the death of hundreds in the woods from starvation.
True. I just don't want to be burdened with this child. We're on the train trying to get back to consecrated ground, and an explosion happens along the way.
Well, remember that this is why we've been brought in, specifically for the Vaesen.
Yes, which makes me wonder what this Bernson knows, because the explosions aren't magical. She called upon us because, clearly, probably the explosions are something quite mundane. She called upon us because the guard's been vanished and not killed. And now we know they've been vanished by probably a miling. But I agree with you, Franz. We practical sorts can try to solve the problem of the mad bomber while the spiritual pipes chase the baby ghost.
Indeed.
We can meet in the middle of the train tracks and drive a great golden spike to commemorate the completion of the railroad.
There is definitely, as it's been mentioned, that just trying to kill this thing is not really an option because it's already dead. It's a ghost. If you did get into a fight with it, the best you could hope for is to try and discorporeate it, which would buy you a degree of time before it can reform. But yeah, Vaesen are generally, they're spirits. You can't just kill them with physical damage. You have to find the cause of what has upset them, what has brought them out into the world, and try and resolve the error or the conflict that then helps to banish them that way.
Resolution would seem to be to get it to consecrated ground.
Or say potentially, depending on what its wishes are, it may demand that it wants its mother or whoever killed it outed, and justice to come to them.
Yes,
That's
the alternatives.
We're also
find it and discuss.
We're also hoping there's only one, but given the hunting pattern, that might be the case. I'd hate to think about.
We could also see if just by chance there is an old church or chapel hidden somewhere in the woods that's much closer, something abandoned.
Something pagan?
No.
In the woods.
I mean, these people have been Christian for hundreds and hundreds of years.
The Pelquists were wealthy enough perhaps to have a chapel.
That's true.
And that might have a consecrated burial ground that's still intact.
If they had a crypt or something.
Even if it was a small, yes. A graveyard might work. Graveyard would work.
I think then of the size of a newborn's grave and the acreage involved in this quest, and I quail a bit.
Well, the dog might really help. It wouldn't necessarily smell a rotting body, but it would definitely smell something. I assume it's a hound.
But this is the forest. There are dead things everywhere.
Exactly.
I mean, hopefully, if we had a scrap of the infant's swaddling, it could have a clue.
One of the potential ways that you can put this thing to rest, that when you put it in the earth, you have to anoint the wrapping that's covered it with at least a few drops of breast milk.
Which of us has that?
Whichever is at that kind of age and is feeling particularly ripe. Yeah.
I would just look at Helena and Valentina like, huh?
I'm just trying
never had a child.
Trying not to look at Helena or Valentina.
So yeah, we have short time frame to figure this out.
Shall we get on then to camp?
As you mentioned this, you can hear the whistle blowing from the front of the train, and anyone wanting to look outside will see that your train has come to the top of not a particularly large, relatively flat terrain from here, but come to the crest of a hill, so you've got a good long view down the rest of the track heading further north from here, where you can see there is a group that's currently repairing the site of the most recent bombing last night.
Yes,
where they're taking up the various parts of the various parts of the track, moving them to one side, putting new pieces of track down, laying new sleepers, and it looks like they're probably 10 or 15 minutes away from completion by the look of it. There's about 20 of them around here, but so the guy's putting the brakes on the engine. He's not going to just roll straight through them. But you can see amongst the group ahead of you, against the workers, there is one person that seems to stand out a bit like a sore thumb. There's definitely a lady down there in a summer dress with a big wide-brimmed floppy hat that seems to be working going around amongst the workers, carrying something in her hand, and almost seems like she's writing down on it. And I think Helena's instinctive senses start tingling here as you get the feeling that there is a journalist down there currently doing vox pops, seemingly talking with the workers and trying to get the skinny on what's just happened down there.
Yes.
And that is probably the best point to leave it for tonight.
Good. Our players included Thomas Grooms, Max Meltzer, Julian Arba, David Gasway, and myself, with Matthew Sanderson as the Game Master. We have a Discord server where you can chat with other members, you can set up private games, and you can learn the finer arts of gameplay and game mastery. We provide audio-only versions of our shows free for you to download from Spotify, Podbean, or iTunes. Support for the show, as I said earlier, is provided by our patrons, who are listed in the closing credits. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and punch the bell icon for updates on our latest shows, and leave us some comments. We enjoy reading them and answering any questions you might have. This is Thom Raley, together with all the members of our gaming club, inviting you to journey with us once again into the darkness for another adventure into the Scandinavian mythology and the Vaesen role-playing game. Until next time, good luck, good gaming.